Welcome back to the channel. Recently, we could notice quite an amount of changes. So in this episode I would like to present how one of them makes a massive improvement to two of my builds. This change especially improves the explosion-based setup, so I encourage you to watch. First of all, I would like to show the difference in the new teleport. Many of you probably know it already. Unfortunately, I haven't had much time lately, so I couldn't make this episode earlier. If this part is obvious to you, you can go next. So, Strange Sojourn has gained an additional teleport stack, and it can be used without a target nearby. Unfortunately, this doesn't happen automatically as in the case of a regular teleport, so this is the first significant difference. The second is the range, which is smaller in the case of Sojourn. The third is the possibility of achieving a smaller cooldown from awaking in the case of Pitiless Pace. So if these three factors do not discourage you from using Leg Essence, because Fear debuff is much more valuable to you. So let me show you two builds in which I personally used this old essence with new properties. In the case of the first build, Primary Necromancer, the change is more cosmetic and only applies to solo overworld farming. So if you are a chip of the stoned holder, then Strange Sojourn might be a good solution to improve your burst damage. Orbiting Spikes will also be a better solution for overworld grinding. I didn't originally include this information in this build, so now is a good time to do so. Light Maw also seems to be a better solution for this particular purpose. Leaving the poison on the target will usually finish it off. An additional improvement is the Lance, which does not require the character to stop in one position during casting. So that's it for the changes in this build. All other configurations for other activities remain unchanged. I don't see the point in discussing them again. If you are interested, you can find them in this video. Now let's move on to my old explosion-based build, which benefits much more given the current circumstances. For a quick reminder, here's a short of an old video. This was a configuration I created before the introduction of Inferno difficulty, so we weren't supposed to use a double main and offhand. However, if you haven't seen this video, here is the basic essence configuration to give you an idea of what changes I made. Because this setup was heavily based on Fear from Teleport and Shoulder Essences, which allow us to explode feared opponents, thus receiving an additional stack for Strange Sojourn is nothing but game changer, and it needs additional reconstruction. So the two things I left unchanged are the Skeletal Warriors with the detonation option. This is perfect for creating corpses, finishing off enemies, and stacking the Weaver. And second, obviously Wrath form along with Fear Essence. However, I completely gave up using the Scythe. The Scythe is only useful against larger groups of mobs. However, the damage from Fear's detonation is sufficient, and the Scythe is unnecessary here. There is a much better substitute. The next thing I gave up on is Armor Essence. which increases the range of the explosion. As you can see in the side-by-side comparison, activation range remains the same. It's hard to determine the range of the explosion with this essence, but I tried placing the skeletons at different distances from the target. The skeletons didn't explode exactly where I wanted them to do. Nevertheless, in my opinion, either the effect is very insignificant or it does not work at all. Additionally, this build suffered a lot against any stronger target, so the replacement I'm using now at least partially solves this problem. Even if it wasn't meant to be, I think it just works better this way. With the possibility of using additional amounts of essence, big skulls deserve special attention. So this is my current setup. For Bone Spirit I use Offhand, which turns this skill into 2 large skulls. Main Hand for an additional chance for fear. It is worth mentioning that we can also detonate this fear effect. Armor Essence for additional damage to feared enemies. It makes Bone Spirit superior skill, and it's much better than explosion range. For explosions, I use Shoulder Essence, which I explained earlier, and Main Hand for increased damage. If you don't need that much damage, it's worth considering essences to reduce the cooldown of Wrath form. For skeletons, standard head and offhand configuration, I will mention here that the damage from the skeleton explosion belongs to the summon damage group, so the Shepherd set is a good option for this skill. And for the Wrath form, of course, Strange Sojourn. If we are talking about legendary gems and green sets, then I would try to avoid solutions such as Pain Clasp, Fervent Fang, and Banquet. Even though they are great, they do not add a bonus from the very beginning, which is very important for this build. However, I highly recommend to pieces of Isatar Imbued and Chip of the Stone, which are simply mandatory. For the remaining 4 parts of the set, it can be Windloft, Shepherd, or Gloom. Since it's just a grinding build, I wouldn't focus so much on gems, but if you are interested in detailed solutions, then you can watch the original video. In conclusion, I believe that we should not focus on creating corpses. It just wastes our time. It's much better to use Bone Spirits in the background and detonate fear. What's more, using any essences that increase attack speed also makes no sense, because in this configuration you will hardly use primary attack at all. Properly used explosion is able to one-hit even elite mob packs, and that's what you should aim for. Nevertheless, if you enjoyed the episode, don't forget about the like button and subscribe to stay up to date with new episodes. That's it for today. As always, thanks for watching, and thanks to all members who supports the channel.